I never thought my life would fall apart on a Friday night. My name is Jake. I'm 27 years old, and I work as a construction manager here in Denver, Colorado. I wake up at 5 in the morning most days, spend 10 hours making sure buildings get put together right, and come home with dirt under my nails and paint on my jeans. It's hard work, but it's honest work. My grandfather taught me how to read blueprints when I was 15, and I've been in love with building things ever since. I met Claire when I was 21. She walked into this coffee shop where I was meeting a client, and she was having this intense conversation with the barista about their recycling program. She wasn't being mean or anything, but she was passionate. She believed in things. That energy pulled me in like gravity. After she got her coffee, I walked up to her and said something stupid about how she should run for mayor. She laughed. We exchanged numbers. 2 weeks later, we were officially dating. Back then, everything felt right. She was studying graphic design at the community college and doing freelance work on the side. She talked constantly about starting her own creative agency someday, about working with big brands, about changing how people saw design. I loved listening to her dreams. It made me want to work harder, save more money, build a future we could share. When her ancient laptop finally died in year 2, I helped her pick out a new one. It wasn't cheap, but seeing her face light up when she opened it made every overtime shift worth it. When she wanted to lease a small studio space for her work, I spent 3 weekends building shelves and installing proper lighting. I thought we were partners. I thought we were creating something beautiful together. But somewhere around year 4, things started feeling different. She would take hours to respond to my texts, sometimes a whole day. When I asked if she wanted to grab dinner on Friday nights, she would say she already had plans with friends, or she had a client meeting, or she was just too tired. Always something. I didn't want to be the boyfriend who complained all the time, so I kept quiet. I kept trying harder. I would show up at her studio with her favorite sushi rolls, surprise her with concert tickets to bands she mentioned liking, plan weekend trips to the mountains, but it felt like I was the only one putting in effort. Like I was rowing a boat while she just sat there looking at her phone. After 5 years together, I started bringing up the idea of getting an apartment together. It seemed like the natural next step. We were both adults with real jobs. We loved each other. Why not combine our lives? But every single time I mentioned it, she would get this look on her face. Her shoulders would go tight. Her smile would disappear. She would say things like, "I don't think I'm ready for that commitment yet. I need my independence. I need to focus on building my career first." I tried to understand. I tried to be patient. But deep down, I started feeling like I was waiting for someone who would never be ready, like I was standing at a door that would never open. Then last Friday happened. She called me around 6 o'clock in the evening. Her voice sounded strange, distant. "Can you come over? We need to talk." Those 5 words. Everyone knows what those 5 words mean. Nothing good ever follows them. I drove to her studio apartment with my hands shaking on the steering wheel. I tried to prepare myself for whatever was coming. But how do you prepare for something like that? When I got there, she was sitting on her gray couch with her arms folded across her chest. She didn't look at me when I walked in. She just stared at the wall like there was something fascinating written there. I sat down in the chair across from her and waited. The silence stretched out so long I could hear the refrigerator humming in her tiny kitchen. Finally, she took a deep breath and spoke. "Jake, I can't continue this anymore." My chest felt like someone had reached inside and squeezed my heart. "Can't continue what?" I asked, even though I already knew. She said, gesturing vaguely between us. "Us." "I need freedom," she said. "I need to discover who I am without being attached to someone." Attached. That single word hit me like a hammer. 6 years of my life. And she called it being attached, like I was some weight dragging her down into deep water. I asked her if there was someone else. She said no. I asked if I did something wrong. She said it wasn't about me, it was about her. She needed to explore her life, meet new people, focus on her goals without worrying about someone else's feelings all the time. I sat there trying to make my brain work, trying to understand how 6 years could just end like this. I gave her everything. I worked extra shifts to help her. I was there every time she called. I celebrated her wins and held her through her losses. And now she was throwing it all away because she needed freedom. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I didn't beg her to reconsider. I just stood up slowly, looked at her one last time and said, "Okay, if that's what you want." Then I walked out of her apartment, got in my truck, and drove home in complete silence. No music, no POV, just me and the sound of the engine, and the weight of knowing I just lost someone I thought I would marry someday. That night, sleep was impossible. I laid in bed staring at my ceiling, replaying every conversation we ever had. Every time I asked for more and she pulled away. Every time I tried to plan our future and she changed the subject. I kept thinking maybe I pushed too hard. Maybe I wanted too much. Maybe if I had been different, she would have stayed. But as the hours passed and the darkness outside my window started turning gray, I realized something that hurt worse than the breakup itself. Claire never wanted what I wanted. She never saw a future with me. Not really. I was just someone convenient, someone to pass the time with, until something better came along. And that truth cut deeper than any words she said during our breakup. Saturday morning came, and I couldn't move. I called my supervisor and told him I was sick. It wasn't exactly a lie. I felt sick. Sick in my heart, sick in my mind, sick of everything. I stayed on my couch in the same clothes from the night before, staring at nothing, existing in this weird space between awake and asleep. Around 9 o'clock in the morning, my doorbell rang. The sound cut through the fog in my brain. I wasn't expecting anyone. My family knew I wanted to be alone. My friends had learned not to push when I got quiet. I almost didn't answer, but the doorbell rang again and again. Whoever was out there wasn't leaving. I dragged myself off the couch, shuffled to the door, and opened it without checking the peephole. Standing on my doorstep was the absolute last person I expected to see. Victoria, Claire's mother. She stood in my doorway wearing a floral dress that looked expensive and heels that clicked against the concrete. Her red hair was pulled back perfectly, not a strand out of place. She looked like she was headed to some important business meeting, not showing up at my messy apartment on a Saturday morning. "Jake," she said, and her voice was gentle but firm. "Can I come in?" Quote. I stepped aside without saying anything. What else could I do? This was Claire's mom. I had known her for 6 years. She had invited me to countless family dinners, asked me about my work, laughed at my jokes. Turning her away felt wrong, even though my apartment looked like a disaster zone. She walked past me into my small living room. Her eyes moved across the takeout containers on my coffee table, the blanket I had been sleeping under, the general mess of someone who had given up on keeping things together. She turned to face me, and I saw something in her expression I couldn't quite identify. Concern, maybe, or something else entirely. "I heard what happened," she said quietly. I nodded but didn't know what to say. What was I supposed to tell her? That her daughter just destroyed me? That I felt like an idiot for wasting 6 years? Victoria crossed her arms, but not in an angry way, more like she was holding something inside herself that wanted to escape. "Jake," she began. "I came here because I needed to speak with you, and I know the timing is terrible. I know this is probably the worst possible moment, but I had to say this before I lost my nerve." My stomach tightened. I had no idea where this conversation was going. "Okay," I said, my voice coming out rough and scratchy. She looked directly at me, her eyes steady and serious. "You're mine now." I stared at her, completely certain I had misheard. "What?" Quote, "I know how that sounds," she said quickly, like she had practiced this speech. "I know it seems crazy. I know you just ended things with my daughter less than 24 hours ago. But Jake, I've been thinking about this for years, actual years, and I can't keep it inside anymore." My mind raced. This wasn't happening. Not Claire's mother. But it was, and what she was saying hit me harder than anything I'd ever heard before. I stood there, frozen. Victoria's words hung in the air like a strange, heavy fog. "You're mine now," she repeated, but this time it didn't feel like a joke. Her voice was steady, as though she truly believed what she was saying. I blinked, unsure if I was hearing things. "Victoria, what are you talking about?" I managed, my voice sounding distant and confused, like I wasn't fully present in the moment. She took a slow step toward me, the space between us closing with a deliberate, almost cautious pace. Her eyes never left mine. and there was something about her gaze that made my heart race, though I couldn't quite put my finger on it. Her hands were now clasped tightly in front of her, the tension in her posture unmistakable. "Jake," she began, her voice soft but firm, "I've watched you for 6 years. I've seen how much you cared for Claire, how much you gave her even when she didn't see you, how you built your world around her, always trying to make her feel important, trying to make her dreams a reality. But all I've seen in return is her pushing you away, taking you for granted." I didn't know what to say. The woman standing in front of me wasn't just Claire's mother. She was someone who had been part of my life for the last 6 years. She had seen my relationship with Claire up close, had shared family dinners with me, laughed with me, and supported me in her own way. But this was different. "I've seen you, Jake," she continued, her voice growing more intense. "And I've watched Claire ignore the love you gave her. I saw the way she would brush you off, always more interested in her work or her friends, making you feel like you were asking for too much when you simply wanted someone to build a life with. And I can't stand by anymore pretending that I don't feel the way I feel about you." I shook my head, trying to wrap my mind around what she was saying. Was I hearing her correctly? Was Victoria really admitting that she had feelings for me? That she'd been silently watching me for years, knowing everything Claire had put me through. And now she was telling me that I was hers? "But you're Claire's mother," I stammered, my words stumbling over themselves. This is wrong. I just broke up with your daughter." "How could you?" Victoria cut me off, her eyes never leaving mine. "I know," she said, her voice softer now, almost apologetic. "I know how this sounds. I know it's complicated, and maybe it's too soon, and maybe it's not what you want to hear. But I've spent too long ignoring this, pretending that I wasn't seeing what was right in front of me. Jake, you deserve someone who sees you. You deserve someone who appreciates you. And you are not just a convenience to me. You're not just someone to pass the time with. You're worth more than that." I stood there, my brain struggling to keep up with everything she was saying. The confusion and shock were overwhelming, but a part of me couldn't ignore the strange pull, the way my heart beat a little faster when she spoke so honestly. "You've been alone for a long time, Victoria," I said, trying to wrap my mind around the situation. "You've been divorced for years, I know. And I'm sure you've been hurt, just like me. But this," I gestured between us, still trying to make sense of it all. "This is too much." Quote. She stepped closer, her eyes filled with something I couldn't quite name. "I understand how you feel, but I've never been with someone who made me feel like you do. Never. I've spent years feeling ignored, just like you, feeling like I wasn't enough. And I know it might seem crazy, but I'm not going to let this moment pass me by. I know what I want now." Quote. The words hung in the air. I wanted to argue, to tell her that this was all too much too soon, that it was wrong. But another part of me, a part that had been pushed down for so long, felt a strange sense of relief. For years, I had tried to give my best to someone who wasn't ready to give anything back. And now here was Victoria, the one person who had always seen me, who had always made me feel like I mattered. "You've been kind to me," I said quietly, my voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know if I'm ready for this. This whole situation, it feels like it's moving too fast." "I don't want to pressure you, Jake," she replied softly. "I'm not asking you to make any decisions right now. I just needed to tell you how I feel. I've watched you struggle with Claire, and I won't sit by and let you feel invisible anymore. You deserve someone who knows your worth." Her words hit me harder than I expected. There was a tenderness in them, a sincerity that made everything else fade away. Claire had never said anything like that to me. She had always kept me at arm's length, always made me feel like I wasn't enough. But here was Victoria, standing in front of me, offering me something completely different. "I just need time," I said, my voice hoarse. "I need to think about all of this. I don't know what to do with these feelings. You're Claire's mother, Victoria." "I know," she said again, her voice almost a whisper now. "And I never wanted to cross that line. I just couldn't ignore it anymore. I wanted to be honest with you before I lost my nerve." She stood there, waiting for me to say something, anything. I could feel the weight of her gaze, the intensity of her words, but part of me was still in shock. My thoughts were a tangled mess, and all I could do was nod. "Okay," I finally said, though I wasn't sure what I was agreeing to. "Okay." Victoria smiled softly, as if a weight had been lifted from her. "Take care of yourself, Jake. You deserve someone who sees you, and I believe you deserve better than what you've been getting." Quote. And with that, she turned and walked toward the door, leaving me standing in the silence of my apartment, unsure of everything. The days that followed were a blur. Victoria's words replayed in my mind over and over again, like a broken record. "You're mine now." The weight of those words sat heavily on my chest, making it difficult to breathe. Part of me felt like I was losing control of my own life, like the ground beneath me was shifting, and I couldn't quite find my footing. How could this happen? Claire's mother, the woman I had shared countless family dinners with, was now admitting feelings for me. Feelings that felt wrong, and yet, somehow, right. I spent most of the next day in a fog, drifting between thinking about Victoria and the devastation of the breakup with Claire. The more I thought about it, the more confused I became. Claire had always been distant, wrapped up in her own world, but Victoria saw me in a way Claire never did. I couldn't tell anyone about the conversation with Victoria. What would they think? My friends, my family, they would never understand. But as much as I tried to push it all away, the truth was that Victoria's words made me feel seen in a way I hadn't in years. The next few days were torturous. Every time my phone buzzed, I found myself hoping it was Victoria, but she didn't call. She didn't text. And part of me, the part that was still loyal to Claire, felt guilty for even thinking about reaching out to her mother. I stayed at home, drowning in my thoughts. My apartment was silent, too silent. It felt like the echoes of my past relationship were bouncing off the walls, reminding me of everything I had lost. Every corner of the place was filled with memories of Claire. But it wasn't just about the apartment. It was about what I had lost within myself. I had spent so long focusing on someone else's needs, on making Claire happy, that I had forgotten what it meant to take care of me. I found myself standing at the window one night, staring out into the Denver skyline, when my phone buzzed again. My heart skipped a beat when I saw Victoria's name on the screen. I stared at it for a long moment before finally tapping it open. "Jake," her message read, "can we talk? I need to see you." A knot formed in my stomach. Was I ready for this? Could I do this without feeling like I was betraying Claire? But I knew I had to face it. I couldn't keep running from the truth. The truth that Victoria made me feel something I hadn't felt in years. I texted her back. "When?" Quote. Her reply came quickly. "Now?" Quote. I hesitated, but I knew I couldn't keep avoiding her. I grabbed my keys and headed out the door, not even thinking about what I was wearing. When I arrived at Victoria's place, my heart was pounding in my chest. I rang the doorbell, and within seconds she opened the door, her face a mix of nervousness and relief. She looked different from the last time I saw her. She wasn't wearing the professional clothes that usually made her look so put together. Instead, she was dressed in a cozy sweater and jeans, her hair pulled back into a messy bun. "Hey," she said softly, stepping aside to let me in. "Hey," I replied, my voice sounding almost foreign to me. She led me into the living room and we both sat down on the couch. I could feel the tension between us, like we were both waiting for the other to speak. But neither of us knew where to begin. Finally, she broke the silence. "Jake, I know this isn't easy. I'm not asking for anything right now. I just want to be honest with you. What I said to you the other day, I meant it. I know it was sudden, but it's been building up for so long. I've been watching you, seeing how much you gave Claire, how much you cared, and I couldn't stand by anymore and pretend I didn't notice. You deserve better." I didn't say anything at first. I just let her words sink in. Could it really be possible that I had been ignored for so long, and now someone was telling me I was worthy of more? I don't know what to say. I finally managed. "This feels so wrong, Victoria. You're Claire's mother. I don't want to hurt anyone. I don't want to make things more complicated than they already are." "I understand," she said, her voice calm and understanding, "but I also know that life is too short to pretend we don't feel things. And I'm not asking you to make a decision right now, I just wanted to tell you how I feel. You deserve someone who sees you, who appreciates you. Her words were like a balm on my broken heart. They made me feel important. For so long, I had been the one fighting for something that never came. But now, here was Victoria, offering me the kind of validation I'd been craving for years. I don't know if I'm ready, I admitted. I'm still figuring out everything with Claire. It's all so fresh. And I don't want to hurt anyone, especially not you. Victoria nodded, her eyes softening with understanding. I'm not rushing you. I don't expect you to have all the answers right now. I just wanted you to know how I feel. And I wanted you to know that I'm here for you, no matter what. If you need time, if you need space, I'll give it to you. But I needed to be honest with you before I lost my nerve. I took a deep breath, letting her words settle in. I was conflicted, torn between the person I thought I loved and the woman who was now standing in front of me, offering me something new, something that felt right in a way I didn't fully understand yet. I'm not sure what this means, I said quietly, but I'll think about it. I need time, Victoria. I need to figure things out. Quote, she smiled, a small, tender smile that made my heart ache. Take all the time you need, Jake. I'm not going anywhere. We sat there in silence for a few moments, just taking in each other's presence. It wasn't easy. Nothing about this situation was easy. But somehow, it felt like I was standing at the edge of something new, something that could heal the pain I had been carrying for so long. The following weeks were a whirlwind. My mind was a tangled mess of emotions, and I didn't know where to turn. On one hand, I had just gone through one of the most painful breakups of my life. On the other, I was being faced with something I never thought I'd experience. Victoria. I spent every day thinking about our conversation, replaying her words in my head. You're mine now. There was something about them that made me feel wanted, valued, something I hadn't felt in years. But at the same time, I knew it was complicated. Victoria was Claire's mother. How could I even entertain the idea of starting something with her? It felt like betrayal, but the part of me that had always longed for connection, for someone to see me, couldn't ignore the way she made me feel. I decided to take things slow. There was no rush. I had just gotten out of a long-term relationship, and I needed to find my own footing again before diving into something new, especially something as complicated as this. So I texted Victoria every now and then. We met up for coffee and talked about life, work, and everything in between. It felt easy with her, easy in a way I hadn't felt in a long time, but as much as I tried to ignore it, I could feel the pull between us. The way she would look at me when we talked, her eyes soft and searching. The way her touch lingered a little longer than necessary when we shook hands or exchanged a hug. Every small gesture felt like it meant something more. One evening, about a month after the breakup, I found myself standing at her front door again. This time, I didn't feel as uncertain. There was a quiet understanding between us now, an unspoken connection that neither of us had to explain. I rang the bell, and she answered almost immediately, smiling as if she'd been expecting me. "Hey," she said, stepping aside to let me in. "Hey," I replied, feeling a warmth in my chest I hadn't realized I was missing. We sat down on the couch, and this time there was no awkwardness. We'd spent so much time talking over the past month that it felt natural to be here with her, as though we had already crossed a line without realizing it. "Jake," Victoria began, her voice quieter than usual. "I've been thinking a lot about everything, about us." I froze. My heart started racing. Was she going to tell me that it was all a mistake, that she couldn't continue? But then she looked at me with such intensity that I could almost feel the weight of her gaze. "I don't want to rush things," she said, taking a deep breath. "I don't want to make any promises I can't keep, but I want to be with you. I want to take this slow and see where it goes, see if this connection between us can grow into something real." A wave of relief washed over me. "I want that too," I whispered, my voice shaky. "I'm just still figuring everything out, but I feel like I can't ignore this. I feel like I can't ignore you." Victoria smiled softly, her eyes lighting up in a way that made my heart skip. "We don't have to rush anything," she reassured me. "We can take it one step at a time, Jake. Just take it slow, let things unfold as they will." And for the first time in a long time, I felt like maybe, just maybe, things were finally starting to make sense. The following weeks were filled with small moments. Quiet dinners at her place, long walks through the city, slow dances in her living room to songs we both loved. It was simple, but it was real. I was starting to believe that maybe what we had could be something lasting, something beautiful. But the road wasn't without its bumps. We had to deal with the complications that came with our connection. There were people who questioned our relationship, who thought it was too strange, too soon. There were moments when I wondered if I was doing the right thing. Was I really ready to be with someone again so soon? Was it fair to Victoria, who had been through so much in her own life? But with every doubt that crept into my mind, there was a bigger feeling that kept me going. A feeling of being seen. A feeling of finally being valued, not just for the things I did for others, but for who I truly was. And as the days passed, I realized something important. The pain of my past relationship with Claire was starting to fade. The hurt, the confusion, the uncertainty, it was all slowly being replaced with something new. Something that felt real. And for the first time in a long time, I felt hopeful about the future. One evening, a couple of months after we'd started seeing each other, Victoria and I sat on her porch, watching the sunset together. The sky was painted with shades of pink and orange, and everything felt quiet and perfect. "You know," she said, her voice soft, "I never thought I'd find someone like you." I turned to her, meeting her gaze. "I never thought I'd find someone like you either." Victoria reached for my hand, her touch gentle. "I'm glad we found each other, Jake." "Me too," I replied, squeezing her hand lightly. "Me too." Quote. And in that moment, I realized that everything I had gone through, the heartbreak, the pain, the uncertainty, had led me here, to her, to us. As the evening stretched on, I felt at peace. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't holding my breath, waiting for the other shoe to drop. I wasn't worried about the future. I was just living in the present, enjoying the simple moments with the woman who had finally made me feel seen.